All right, so we're going to be doing kind of something that I wasn't necessarily planning, meaning that I didn't know how to really approach this topic and give it a fair representation because I don't like to present my point of view when obviously I could have a conflict of interest there. And maybe I'm overcompensating here. But we are going to talk a little bit about this issue of the Golan Heights and Donald Trump recognizing the sovereignty of Israel there. But first, I want to let you guys know that there is a bit of a controversy brewing, and it has to do with Jim Jeffries being exposed by Australian Israeli YouTuber Avi Yemini for deceptively editing an interview with him, and beyond that, also allegedly saying a number of disparaging remarks about Muslims and Islam in the interview that he cut out. And this is similar to the Panadrama issue that was happening in Britain, except over there it was an issue of more John Sweeney saying kind of anti-gay things, using slurs that I guess in British social parlance would be considered blatantly homophobic. And these are people who are very, very much, and so I have a great amount of views already for me. Sorry, I wouldn't call this a good thing to brag about, but this many views in this short of a time for me is a good thing, because I won't get this on YouTube. In fact, this is why I released this on BitChute. First of all, YouTube would probably give me a copyright strike for using not only possibly footage from Jeffrey's show, but also from Bill Maher's show where Jeffries appeared, as well as some, what was the other thing that he did? Oh yeah, he also had this comedy routine that I remember. I watched his special, and this is not easy for me to do, or it used to be not easy for me to do, because I used to think that Jim Jeffries was an amazing comic. I thought he was great, and he's just completely turned his back on us. He's beyond crossed over to the side of evil. So I think he definitely deserves this. So I put the link in the chat. Go to the chat. Yeah, Zatoichi's Cane Sword, welcome. Glad to have you on a live stream finally. Before we get to that, I just wanted to let you guys know I did put the link to the BitChute video here, and I'm going to keep sharing it again just so you guys can watch it, because it is not going to be on YouTube. That's why I put it as Noise Cancel the News, episode 42 asterisk. So it's not really an official episode of Noise Cancel the News, which, by the way, is that's the background I use for everything. I'm not really. I also have the Razor Ray special cuts thing. So back to the topic at hand, the Golan Heights. I can tell you, I did serve in the Israeli military. That's why I can't necessarily claim to be impartial here. And for people to claim that Israel should withdraw from the Golan Heights, they would have to understand that prior to 1967, when it was in Syrian hands, the Golan Heights was used by the Syrian armed forces to conduct artillery strikes on Israeli areas. Okay, so there was a constant battle between the Israeli Air Force and land divisions to prevent the Syrians from actively, shelling parts of the country. The Syrians would also do things like try to divert the tributary rivers that go into the Kinneret. Let's pull up a map. So you have northern Israel. So I hope it doesn't give ancient Israel, but let's see here. This is the problem. It gives a lot of older stuff. So let's look at this one. This is probably the best one to use for right now, because it gives a little bit of more of a focus here. So the red area is the northern Israel. This is the Galilee. This area over here, this is the region that I lived in, the Carmel. Okay, the one right next to it. And this is the Golan Heights, where my Zoom icon is right now. So, and if you look at this region between the two dotted lines, you see this is a disarmed, what do you call it? A DMZ. Basically, it's a no man's land. There's nobody living there. There's a lot of abandoned domiciles in that area. So essentially, this is the state of the region since 1967. For those of you that are asking, And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because Donald Trump has he's made a tweet. He issued a tweet earlier. I think they're probably going to cite it here, where he claims that it's fine. Yeah, here it goes. He says, after 52 years, it is time for the United States to fully recognize Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights, which is of critical strategic and security importance to the state of Israel and regional stability. Is this a factual statement? It depends who you ask, okay? Because regional stability, if you're with somebody who's for the sake of argument, who's not a fan of Israel, you would say that Israel existing at all is not conducive to regional stability. So obviously there's certain bases of standards that they're just not going to be agreed on, but like between different parties. Russia has come out and publicly declared that they will never recognize the Golan Heights as part of Israel. And it is definitely something that can be debated. Okay, on their side, they'd probably say it can't be debated. They'd say, well, this was seized during war. It is effectively occupied land and everything, but they like to forget. Okay, Syria, I believe they have a land claim to Lebanon. Let's see here. This is going to take a minute. So Lebanon was effectively carved out of Syria about, I think, 100 to, yeah, let's see here. Lebanon was given its independence in 1943, but it was seen as part of Greater Syria under the Ottoman Empire. Okay, Greater Syria is kind of a region that would flow into modern Turkey and Iraq, and obviously Jordan and what's the other country? Jordan, Israel, and therefore Russia, which is Syria's ally, they wouldn't want Syria to give up any land such as the Golan Heights, but it's a difficult situation for Russia. I think the only interest Russia has in the region is to keep their naval port on the Mediterranean Sea. They have a naval port at the Syrian city of Tartus, and it's very important for them. And I don't do kind of streams about international relations trying to attack a specific country all the time. I think it would be kind of ridiculous at a certain point. People would start calling me a propagandist, and that's not really my intention. So yeah, Russia has a rational interest in Syria remaining a strong country. That's why they do back up the Syrian government. That's why they've sent anti-aircraft missiles to Syria over the past couple of years in order to discourage overflights, including by Israel, into Syria. So you have to realize this is a geopolitical fault line between the U.S. and Russia. And in many ways, I think that Russia, they need some sort of footprint within the Middle East in order to secure their own energy independence and keep kind of these. Russia's also threatened by a lot of Islamic extremists in their own borders. Okay, remember Chechnya is still controlled by Russia. Okay, now I'm not here to endorse or condemn either way Russia's actions in the Middle East or the U.S. actions in the Middle East, but this stream is going to be kind of this examination of how it is that Trump is using this strategy in order to fight his political foes. Okay, this isn't necessarily this isn't here to endorse his policy. I think I happen to think, if you were to pin me down, that this is not a bad policy. But the motivations behind the policies are, they have to be examined as well. Okay? I don't think that I need to make this about Trump being, the greatest friend of Israel and the Jews or whatever. That's for other people to make the argument, and I don't care. Um, you know, good for him if he really feels that way. And if you think that that's a bad policy, then there's obviously different perspectives on this. But let me explain what I think is the real motivation behind it. Okay, this is again personal opinion. So you have to notice that in the past few days, President Trump has pretty much dumped on John McCain, who's dead, and who cares? I wasn't, I wouldn't go as far as Sticks Hexenhammer, who really, really hates John McCain. Like, I don't like John McCain, but Sticks Hexenhammer takes it to a new level of just, I guess I'd call it enjoyment at attacking John McCain, which is, I guess that's where he comes from. But yeah, John McCain was a dishonest, horrible politician who used his war record in order to demonize his opponents. And he was the top NeoCon for the past 10 years at least, if not longer. So when you think of neocons and intervention and all of that, who can you really look at that's worse than John McCain? I don't know. I think John McCain is somebody who was addicted to war, and he was looking all he could for ways to embroil the U.S. into more garbage. Yeah. So Zadoichi, no, I have no problem if you're asking about Russia, but I think yeah, people lose sight of the reason that Russia is over there in Syria. I think Vladimir Putin isn't a great person, but he's not the first Russian leader to intervene in the Middle East. They've had a lot of involvement over there. In fact, if people object to American involvement in the Middle East, but they're fine with Russian involvement, it's a sign that they're not truly non-interventionists. Russia was involved in the Middle East during the 50s, 60s, from the 1950s, and even prior to that, all the way up to the end of the Soviet Union. They were involved very heavily. They were supporting a lot of governments over there. Libya, Syria, Iraq, to a certain extent, Iran after the revolution. They were selling them weapons, at least. That's true. So Russia has had interventionist policies in the Middle East for years and years and years. And when you hear people who are on the American left, you ask them, well, why can Russia intervene over there and we can't? They like to give the answer, well, we should be better than them. Right? That's correct. That's fine. I don't support regime change in the Middle East. I think what John McCain did was definitely what he did in terms of what the policies he supported. That he is responsible for the horrible division and lack of real social cohesion in the U.S. through basically saber rattling and waving the bloody shirt all the time. That was his entire career. It was waving the bloody shirt, saying that he was because he was abused in Vietnam, and because of various claims that he made throughout his life about and I'm not going to litigate it. I think Larry would probably be fine going into that. John McCain, he guilted America into more wars, but you have to realize why Donald Trump is using this. Okay, this is what I'm trying to get to. I'm not trying to be here the whole night. I did. By the way, why am I streaming so late? Because I wasn't feeling great earlier. I was having a lot of coughing, so I took a long nap. Then I went to the gym, and now I'm awake. And also, please look at my BitChute video about Jim Jeffries, which is currently up to, let's see here. It's doing well. This is great. So, the real issue that I'm talking about is that Donald Trump, if he recognizes the Golan Heights as part of Israel, It's not as interventionist of a policy as John McCain would have had, but it's still an interventionist foreign policy. Okay, that's the real problem that we have to take issue with. Now, it's okay for the U.S. to make declarations in favor of one country or another. It's not like people think that because we're the United States and we're the most powerful country in the world, that we're not supposed to pick winners based on who our allies are. But that's the way countries behave. Okay, picking winners isn't the issue. Sending people in order to enforce literally every policy that you want is worse than picking winners. Russia is picking winners in Syria by supporting the Assad government, and I'm not here to condemn them for that, but the U.S. has picked winners in the Middle East in their own right for several years. Think about it this way: Russia supported Syria and Egypt during the 1967 war. They supplied them with all the tanks, aircraft, and other hardware in order to, kind of confront Israel at the time. Let's look at a different map. This is 6-day war map. So this is a pretty important map. Okay, so let's see. This is kind of a biased website, but I'm hoping the maps won't be a problem. Yeah, Larry, just do it. Just join the BitChute channel. It's really important. Okay, I need more BitChute subscribers because it's impossible to grow on YouTube. Yeah, thanks, Satoichi. So this pretty much this is the perspective of the Israeli side, and it is historically true. So the Arab forces sent several divisions of infantry and armor up to the Israeli border in the 5 days preceding the war. So you have troops from Iraq, Syria, Lebanon approaching the border in the immediate, days preceding the war. In fact, Saudi Arabia apparently came in, and I don't know if they ever actually engaged in combat, which would have been interesting. You have Egypt putting troops up to there. And then, the Israelis, using mostly air power, they were able to basically vanquish the Egyptian forces because there was a pre-dawn attack, and they had advanced intelligence as to where all of the enemy planes were on the Syrian and Egyptian frontiers, and Jordan's air force wasn't really that significant of a power. So the Israelis were able to basically destroy all of the enemy air power, and from there it didn't really matter because the Egyptian forces were sitting ducks. They were mostly heavily armored, immobile forces, and the Israelis were more focused on mobile tank warfare. So it was to cut the long story short, they were able to easily defeat the Egyptians, who were the main force, and also defeat the other two, which are Syria and Jordan. There were other countries that were involved in the war to a lesser extent, and they didn't really play that significant of a role. But since then, Syria tried to reclaim the Golan Heights in the 73 war, which, by the way, my dad was in. He was on the Egyptian front. He actually crossed the Suez Canal in the Yom Kippur War of 1973, and they were unsuccessful. So the Syrians have tried to militarily regain the Golan Heights, and they failed. Okay, it's just the truth. So look, you can like it, you can not like it, but I don't think that much is going to change in the near future regarding the fate of the Golan Heights. Which were Egypt and Syria. No, Egypt and Syria actually left the UAR in 1961, or rather, Syria left it. So the UAR actually only existed for 3 years as a real union. Now, Egypt was still called the United Arab Republic until 1975 or something. It was a joke because it was just Egypt at that point. So it was like the United Arab Republic, but it was just Egypt. So that's a little history here. So why is Trump doing this? Well, it's cheap points. You have to understand this. It's cheap political points, and I don't think it's a great decision in terms of foreign policy all the way. I think that certainly Larry would agree with me on some of this. I don't know how much. I'm just going to assume he agrees on some of this, but the policy with Venezuela right now is it's getting into intervention. We're doing things over there where we're certainly tipping the scales in favor of our guy down in Caracas. Okay, that is something that I don't think most Trump supporters really wanted when he came into office, because we don't, those of us that voted for Donald Trump, we wanted a person who wanted to focus mostly on domestic policy. And I don't think I'm speaking only for myself here. I think a lot of you also support. I think a lot of you guys are in the same boat. Okay, even somebody like me, I do support Israel. I support, my family lives there. I have a cousin who's serving her national service in the police over there. She's a really, I remember she was probably 5 years old. It's I'm sorry. So there's certain things that I think I have to be biased on, but I can't say that this is necessarily the greatest political move in terms of fulfilling the Trump vision. Now, the fact of the matter is that we're not going to have a positive foreign policy with Syria anytime soon. I'm talking, us being the United States, because the Assad government really is, they're allied totally to the Russian government. Okay, they're allied totally to, and to some extent also Iran. Okay, it's kind of a combination of Iran and Russia. So the economic interests of Russia are being represented in Syria, similar to the way that we treat Latin America. That's why I'm saying that it's not. I'm not calling this a right or wrong thing. I'm just describing what's going on here. So the United States and Russia have basically reverted to their roles back during the Cold War. When the Cold War ended, those of you that may remember, and Larry might remember this better than me because I was only about 6 years old. But in 1991, President Bush wanted to kind of create realign the world because the Soviet Union was falling apart, and he convened the Madrid Peace Conference, and I believe that both Israeli and Syrian representatives appeared there, and Syria was kind of drifting away from the Soviet camp because there was no advantage of being in the Soviet camp. The Soviet Union was too unstable to actually offer the amount of aid that they used to, and it fell apart. The fact of the matter is that the world realigned into kind of this unipolar U.S.-dominated format, and people were thinking, well, we're not going to see different sides anymore. It's basically going to be the U.S. imposing policy across the globe. So our relations with Syria improved to some degree under, President Bush the elder, and Bill Clinton, I think, was, he had a pretty good relationship with Syria. But, with Putin coming to power and President Bush intervening in the Middle East, getting us involved in the Iraq war, of course, Obama also got us involved in other wars over there in Yemen and Libya. Of course, why wouldn't Syria draw us closer to Russia? There's no reason to ask why Syria would be allied with Russia. You don't have to endorse the deeds and conduct of the Syrian government. I think the Syrian government is run by horrible people. I think that if you are a Syrian citizen and you think that that Assad is going to bring long-term prosperity, I have yet to see the evidence. Okay, now granted, I don't live there. Let's see what Larry says. From my limited and myopic viewpoint, remembering these wars on TV, northern Israel was taking indirect fire, artillery and rockets from the Golan Heights. It reminds me in a way of the rocket strikes from Gaza Yeah, it's a similar issue. So, and now there's buildup on the Golan frontier of Hezbollah forces. So Syria uses the issue that people have to remember is that people think that Israel is the only warmonger in the Middle East, okay? Because they dislike Israel's character, okay? They dislike either it has to do with what they call malignant Zionism, which in many cases it is based on prejudice towards Jews, or okay, so I'm not calling all of them anti-Semites. So it's because they disagree with U.S. intervention in the Middle East. But they have to remember, Syria actually did occupy part of Lebanon for several years. Let's see here. So there was a Syrian occupation of Lebanon. I hope they have a map here. Yeah, so you have this zone over here, the dark green zone over here. Since 1976, Israel occupied this little sliver of land over here for a while. Okay, let's do the Israeli security zone in Lebanon. So there's another map over here. So let's see, this isn't the greatest map, but it kind of helps. So a line that's kind of the map isn't actually shown very well, but there's a line that goes all the way from here to here. That was occupied by the Israelis in the 80s, past the throughout the 80s and 90s, and then in 2000, Prime Minister Barack he relinquished it. So let me see if I can get a better map of that. So yeah, this is a good one. So you see this kind of hashed area over here. That was the Israeli occupation line in Lebanon. Now occupation. This was literally a military occupation. I'm not putting any political heft behind it. I'm just saying that the Israeli military occupied those areas. So then people want to talk about that, and that's fine. I have no problem with people talking about that, but they have to realize that Syria also occupied this green area over here. See that? And then you would have, these areas don't exist anymore. The other ones that and that's been over, I think, since 2005. Syria had to withdraw because of a lot of the issues with there were all these bombings that Syria was organizing in Lebanon. They murdered the prime minister over there, and a number of the assailants ran away to Syria and never were extradited. So Larry's bringing up remain pro-Israel in most respects, but I remain bitter about the U.S.'s liberty. Well, I mean, the U.S.'s liberty is a topic that I've offered people to come on and debate on the show. So, I'm not somebody who shies away from the topic. I wouldn't say I'm an expert on the topic, but it's definitely something that people bring up. So, getting back to the issue. So what's he doing here? He's throwing easy, chum to the Sharks. The Sharks being people who are very favorable towards Israel. Like people in Congress, Lindsey Graham. You could say people who, the defense industry, right? And those are people who would support that. Okay, so then there's other issues that are going on as well. So right now, there's a major rift going on in the Gaza Strip, which is often considered the front line of the cause of Palestinian human rights. For those of you that are being in the, those of you that are in the Palestinian camp. So Gaza is going through this upheaval because of the economic situation, and people are actually protesting against the leadership there, the Hamas leadership. And instead of those people who say, well, Israel abuses Palestinian protesters, people die, whatever. The same thing is happening with the protesters against Hamas. The Hamas has been arresting journalists. They've been putting people, they've been firing live rounds at over the heads of these demonstrators. It says videos posted online showed officers clubbing unarmed protesters and firing live rounds into the air. Amnesty International said hundreds of people, including journalists, attempting to document the rallies had been subjected to arbitrary arrest and torture. The rights group said its Gaza-based researcher Hind Hudari had been questioned by the Interior Ministry, during which 4 male interrogators subjected her to ill treatment. They used abusive language and threatened to prosecute her for spying and working as a foreign agent, Amnesty said. Nikolai Mladenov, the United Nations envoy to Israel and the Palestinian territories, criticized the crackdown, saying, I condemn the Hamas violence in Gaza against protesters, women, children, journalists, and human rights activists, he said. Hamas has increased taxes on cigarettes and other... Yeah, taxes, they're taxation whores. There you go. So don't tread on me, Gaza. I don't know. What am I supposed to say about that? Obviously, they might need taxation, so I'm just joking there. Hamas has increased taxes on cigarettes and other foods. That's pretty. Those of you that don't know, in the Palestinian territories, people smoke like there's tons of smokers. Israel has a lot of smokers too, and I'm not going to say that. I would say that of the two, I think the Palestinians smoke more. So you're going to piss people off by taxing cigarettes, okay? And I think taxing cigarettes is one of the most dirty ways of raising revenue, because people are addicted to it. And if you really wanted to help people, I guess you would ban cigarettes. I know some people are of the mind that this whole thing about cigarettes being harmful is overblown, but you have to ask yourself, why is it that it's so addictive? People, my mom actually was addicted to cigarette smoking up until maybe 2 years before she passed away. So you're basically using these taxes in order to extort your entire, everybody who uses this, people who are addicted to something. Basic foods, including some fruits, have trebled in price. Most of our fire missions. So he's talking about his service over in Lebanon in the Navy. So yeah, I think Larry once sent me a picture of something from the USS Arkansas. So yeah, I know that there was a massive bombing that killed all those Marines there. What was it? Was it 283 Marines there in the 80s? Mad Dodge Productions, welcome. Don't ban my cigs. I understand your feeling. I don't smoke anymore. I don't think I could go back. I have enough problems coughing as it is. Let me see here. The World Bank says Gaza's economy is in free fall, with youth unemployment hovering at about 70%. It primarily blames a crippling decade-long Israeli-Egyptian blockade that severely limits the movement of people and goods into the Strip. But both countries say the restrictions are for security reasons, but UN experts call it collective punishment for Gaza's roughly 2 million residents. Donald Trump's drastic cuts to U.S.-funded Palestinian aid programs have also left many of Gaza's poorest without vital medical and financial support. So this is where I think people are stupid, okay? I get it that you oppose U.S. intervention on behalf of Israel, and it's an acceptable perspective to have. Most of my audience is against intervention. I am against foreign aid to Israel. The same people who object to that in many cases. I'm not talking about anybody in the audience, because I know Mad Dodge is probably 100% or close to 100% where I'm at. But a lot of people who oppose U.S. aid to Israel have no problem with U.S. aid to the UN Relief and Works Agency, which is the agency that supplies the Palestinians. And my question is, what the fuck is the point? Why would you? So I would say I would be fine with the U.S. ceasing both of them. I would say, why do either one? If the Israelis want to buy weapons, they should just buy them. Why do we give them money so they can buy our weapons? It just doesn't make any sense. Unless you count the fact that the defense industry likes that money. The defense industry wants the U.S. to subsidize countries to buy their stuff. It's a thing. The CSS Virginia, what's that about? That was a few months after we were relieved on station by our sister. Oh, I get it. You guys have to know his show. Mad Dad says no aid till we have a balance. No, I say no aid, period. If they can buy the weapons, I have no problem with selling weapons to even countries that might be shitty countries. If they want to buy American weapons, and we say, maybe we sell them weapons and we say, look, we'll sell you some weapons but we'll also try to broker an agreement. So, but in principle, there's no problem with selling weapons to other countries. Okay, if there's problems in the Philippines, I'm not sure I would support all the issues that the Philippines government has. Some of the policies where they do extrajudicial execution. I still don't care if we sell them weapons. The Philippines has never invaded another country, and I doubt that they will. I think they just censored a message from Mad Dodge, so I don't know what the hell is going on here. Live chat. Yeah, Mad Dodge, it just erased one of you. Or no, you just put a period there. So yeah, the Palestinian leadership has been persecuting journalists for a long time, and that doesn't get enough attention. I do believe in a free press, as free as you can make it. If journalists violate the law and actually, endanger people, if they actually do things that are, the freedom of the press doesn't mean the journalists can just, whip their dick out and wave it at you. That would be an abuse of their press credentials, obviously. But you have people that are, they're Palestinian journalists. They're interested in defending the rights of Palestinians within the Palestinian society. Don't they get, an advocate too? I think that they should. Okay, I'm not a person who judges people based on where they come from, unless, obviously sometimes they make a lot of off-color jokes and things. Matt Dodge is asking how you've been. Long time no talk. I should say I haven't been on Mad Dodge's show since last year, and it could be because I work evenings, I work sometimes into the evening, and his show is, I think it usually starts around probably 6 p.m. my time, and if I do get home in time, I'm usually just completely depleted. So, I still I still remember you guys, but I just have kind of I think I have energy issues. No idea what their issue is. They keep deleting my messages all the time. Huh. So yeah, I think these Palestinian journalists, okay, if they want to talk about civic issues there, if you ever go to the West Bank, okay, I can't speak about the Gaza Strip because I never served there, but there is certainly a well-educated population there, statistically, and a lot of those people, they go into communications and media, and I'm not going to say I agree with their perspective usually, but some of these people have. Wouldn't you assume, guys? Okay, we're all all of us are kind of open-minded people, I would hope. So Palestinians who have grievances against the Israeli government could also have grievances against the Palestinian leadership as well. Now, if it's wrong for the Israelis to arrest journalists or target journalists, it's the same rule should apply for the Palestinians. Now, what the people who are on the world activist left will say is, well, that's really their internal business. That they say the same thing about Syria. Syria has also abused and killed journalists. Now, I personally think that if you're going to apply a standard to one side, you have to be consistent with both sides. And if you don't like that, then maybe you don't really have any convictions. Maybe you really are biased against the Israelis for some reason. And I think these people should deal with it. So, what is the real effect of what's going on here? So Bernie Sanders actually put a tweet out earlier, and I'm sure if you guys saw this, you might have laughed a little. So this is great. You have Anna Navarro, this piece of shit. Here, this is a tweet from yesterday, I guess. He says, Senator John McCain was a friend of mine, was a friend and a man of great courage and integrity. We need a president who will fight for our veterans, not attack the memory of an American hero. Yeah, I don't know what the hell you're talking. Even Kyle Kalinske. Kyle Kalinske is not the worst. He at least is honest when he has a problem. And he sent this GIF. Every time I try to leave comments about BitChute, YouTube just disappears it. Wow, that's pretty low of YouTube. There was a CSS Arkansas as well, another ironclad. So Mad Dodge, I think, has a lot of very in-depth stuff about the Civil War. So I think I've seen a couple of those streams. It's just not a focus of mine. But it took me a couple of minutes to really get what he was talking about. You were saying, this ain't it, Chief, to Bernie Sanders. Delete. The reactions here are just, they're classic. Stop. And these are all his these are all of his supporters here. Let's see if I got a few more views here. This is and not that much. Yeah, but seriously, guys, go subscribe to my BitChute. Don't be gay. So what's been the effect of it? So here's what's going on. Okay, I'm going to try to. This was really the central area of what I'm talking about today. So let me try to concentrate. Sorry if I ignore the chat for a few minutes. So what's the purpose of attacking John McCain and also supporting policies that could be? I would say this is a NeoCon policy. Okay, you can like it or hate it, but endorsing Israeli annexation of the Golan Heights is a NeoCon policy. If you really want to think about it, other people may support it for their own various reasons. It's obviously kind of chum for the sharks like Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham is in the pocket of the defense industry. Yeah, those of you, I'm not afraid to say it. I think AIPAC certainly are very much hand in hand with Lindsey Graham. That's his choice. I don't support Lindsey Graham. I don't support the whole aid model. I have a very strong opposition to it. That's me. Okay, I'm not going to demonize people. I just don't like Lindsey Graham. And I don't like a lot of these other politicians like Ted Cruz that they make it their. I wanted a domestic policy. I wanted an end to civil asset forfeiture. I wanted an end to Obamacare in total, and kind of a loosening of all of these issues with, restrictions on insurance across state lines, and the subsidization of the insurance industry through Obamacare, as well as, I supported the Trump administration because of the school choice issue. Now, since he's become president, I've become more and more sympathetic to his view on the border. When he was running for president, I didn't really give a shit about it. These are all those were the issues I really cared about. Okay, I never trusted presidents in terms of foreign policy. I'm not going to start doing it today. Let me see here. Yeah, Mad Dad, you have to get stronger in the BitChute game. It's really the key is you need shorter videos. So you're gonna have to release some shorter videos in addition to your live streams. That's the only way. That's the problem. You need some shorter videos in order to get them onto BitChute. So it seems here. It says Democrats appear to. So while John McCain is getting hammered by Donald Trump and he's dead. So all of these Democrats have to kind of dickwag about how much they love John McCain, which nobody really. I think only Lindsey Graham, to be honest with you, really liked John McCain. I would assume that some of the other assholes in the Senate, like Ted Kennedy, were friends of his as well, which is it just indicates how stupid our political system is, where we have people who are horrible for different reasons get to sit at the same table and snack on our country. So they have to pretend that they love John McCain, and Donald Trump doesn't. Meanwhile, Donald Trump imposes some of the same policies that were John McCain to be alive, he might have endorsed, like recognizing the Golan Heights as part of Israel. Okay? Not saying whether that's a correct policy or not. If you oppose that policy, I think you would agree with me that it could be construed as it probably would be a NeoCon policy. Lindsey Graham certainly supports it. Now, so while the Democrats and while a lot of these fake Republican people like Anna Navarro are claiming, well, this is violating all our norms. John McCain was a lovely person. They also have to object to Donald Trump pursuing a policy that probably would have been John McCain's policy. Yeah, that's not going to happen, Larry. Sorry. So, in continuance of this, meanwhile, the Democrats are doubling down on this whole thing of attacking AIPAC. Now, the reason I don't really care if they do it or not is because there's been this tradition over the past couple decades or so of these politicians going to AIPAC and spilling their guts and saying how much they love Israel or whatever. And it's one group that they pander to, but it's really like sickening pandering. It's almost like nausea inducing. And they usually come up with all these sorts of retarded anecdotes about the time that they had like a pile of gefilte fish in front of them and they just dove into it because they stuff like that. I'm making that up, but it really is that degree of ridiculousness. So it says here: Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Beto O'Rourke, Pete Buttigieg, Jay Inslee, and Julian Castro have all confirmed they won't attend the pro-Israel conference this year. Democrats started pulling out after MoveOn, a progressive advocacy group, called on Democratic national presidential candidates to skip the event, which typically enjoys support from major Democrats. Top Dems, including Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, are speaking at AIPAC this year. Okay, so we're getting to the point here. He's concerned about the platform AIPAC is providing for leaders who have expressed bigotry and oppose a two-state solution. Bernie Sanders policy director Josh Orton told the Huffington Post Sanders has highlighted his Jewish faith as part of his 2020 presidential campaign. What the hell does that have to do with it? So you're Jewish and you are against AIPAC or whatever. I thought you said that AIPAC has nothing to do with Judaism. Okay, I don't think it does. These people are so. This is what Trump is doing. He's making them so defensive and insecure that people are noticing how kind of ill at ease they are to tackle this topic. Lindsey Graham's testicles finally dropped into place when I don't buy this whole this new Graham thing. I don't care. If people want to like him, they can admit it. I don't think I'm really convinced. I think maybe he's behaved a little better. but whatever. Multiple presidential candidates skipping the conference marks another sign that Democrats are being forced to reckon with their years of support for Israel. On Thursday, for example, the House unveiled a bipartisan resolution to condemn boycotts movements against Israel. The United Nations and numerous human rights groups have repeatedly condemned Israel or its occupation of Palestinian authorities, which the U.S. doesn't recognize as an official state. Just last week, the UN said that Israel may have committed war crimes in 2018 by shooting at unarmed Palestinians. Israeli forces killed at least 189 Palestinians in clashes last year, which, by the way, is less than the Nicaraguan government killed of their own people, which I've highlighted. I say this, okay? If you want to object to one, you should object to both. People don't care about the dead people in Nicaragua. Okay, or now they care about Venezuela, but Venezuela has a ton of oil. I want to say that these human tragedies that are going on, they should be assessed based on their merits as opposed to based on some very superficial stylistic issues that you have with them. The issues that people like Jamarl Thomas and his people and Jimmy Dore and the people who are on the left have with Israel are stylistic. They don't really care about human rights or anything like that. I personally would say human rights isn't the issue. I want less wars around the world because I think those wars kind of spread the misery around the world. Okay, so human rights, I don't know how to define it. I'm not a human rights activist. It's just maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know how to do it. In Fear and Loathing on the campaign trail in 1972, there was a full-page photo of Hubert Humphrey waving a fist with the caption, "I was once a Jew myself." Are you serious? Is that, by the way, is that by Hunter S. Thompson, or am I wrong? Because it sounds like, of course, his other book, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Looking at the bipartisan investors of Genie Energy, I've heard there is more oil in the Golan Heights than so. Look, it's such a small area that I don't think you could have more oil than Saudi Arabia. There's probably some natural gas. He was the first U.S. senator to vote 3 different ways on the same legislation within 5 minutes. Okay, you guys are distracting me. Anyway, look. Minnesota Democrat Representative Omar and Michigan Democratic Representative Rashida Tlaib, the first 2 Muslim women in Congress, are also the only members in the legislative body that support the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement against Israeli occupation of Palestinian territory. Since taking office for the first time earlier this year, Omar has become the most vocal critic of Israel and AIPAC's influence on American politics. But Omar has faced fierce backlash from Democrats and Republicans alike, and even death threats. Critics have tried to paint her comments, which called out AIPAC's use of money to influence politics, as anti-Semitic. Earlier this month, the House planned to condemn anti-Semitism as a direct rebuke of Omar, though a huge amount of grassroots support manifested for her. Democrats ultimately decided to water down the resolution to instead condemn all forms of hatred, including Islamophobia and white supremacy. Harris, Sanders, Warren, and Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, another 2020 presidential candidate who has not pulled out of AIPAC, all voiced support for Omar in the wake of her criticism of Israel. So those people are going to have, Senator Gillibrand is going to have an issue too, because she's had a number of other smaller incidents that would like, for example, she was an ally of Linda Sarsour during the whole Me Too nonsense and during the Women's March. So she's definitely going to get a few boos from the crowd during the AIPAC. You know what? I might actually watch these AIPAC speeches this year, because this year you might actually have a few honest reactions. Whereas in previous years, it's just a bunch of bullshit. It's a bunch of preening and peacocking and dick wagging about, oh, I love the Jews. Look, I don't need people to kind of whore for my vote. Okay, I've said that domestic policy is my priority, and if people want to have a different approach to Israel, like I don't know if I'd necessarily make it my pet issue at all. I think it's not really it's not my problem. I mean, it kind of is my problem, but the fact is that I oppose foreign aid. So that's why I supported Rand Paul. That's why I can probably continue to support Rand Paul, even though he's had a few bad votes lately. So another thing I want to mention about Ilhan Omar is that if you think that Ilhan Omar is this like golden child of peace activism and whatever, she also said she also apparently said something about the people of Syria revolted against Assad's repressive dictatorship 8 years ago today, demanding a more just and free movement. Peace-loving people around the world stand in solidarity with them in this struggle. So she's basically endorsed the Muslim Brotherhood-supported Syrian opposition and rebel groups. So a couple weeks ago, you loved her because of her fucking AIPAC position, which, good for you. Now are you going to jump on her because she apparently supports regime change in Syria? No, you're not. Because most of these people are completely fake. They just hate, they do hate Israel. It's true. They do. They hate her. And Syria girl, Maram Sousli, who they call a racist and a fascist. I don't care if she's a racist and a fascist. She can say whatever the hell she wants, and she's also smoking hot. But we probably would not get along though at all. She says, Ilhan, you claim to oppose AIPAC, but on Syria you're in lockstep with them. Israel wanted war with Syria. They backed Al Qaeda as to annex the Golan Heights. So I think that's that's kind of a lie on the part of Syria girl. But I could understand why she would say, well, now suddenly you're flipping on this issue. You're supporting regime change against Assad. If you're going to be anti-interventionist, it's really difficult to twist around and start to say, well, actually intervention would be great over here because it benefits the people that I like. That's the real problem with being blanket anti-interventionist. That eventually people find a reason to support intervention due to a pet issue that they have. Maybe I'll read that. Maybe I'll read that book, Larry. So what I'm trying to get to here, and I think we're coming towards the end, is so this is from Counterpunch, by the way, which is a very strongly pro-Palestinian group. In any case, so I love this. This is the left basically turning flamethrowers on. Usually you see like a Mexican standoff with people pointing guns at each other. This is them pointing flamethrowers at each other. So what Trump has done, and this is good political strategy. I don't know if it's right. I don't know if this is something that is good. Okay, you guys can have your own opinion. Mad Dodge, definitely I respect Mad Dodge. Definitely I respect Chris as well, and Larry from the USS Arkansas. So Donald Trump has managed to do this. He pissed off all of the neocons by attacking John McCain. That's number one. He's also implemented a neocon policy by recognizing the annexation of the Golan Heights by the Israelis. And now they're going to have to bring that to a vote in Congress. So Trump can make it State Department policy, but it can't be ratified as now. Like if he's going to have this thing that he's going to do soon, probably. You can probably bet on it. He's going to have McConnell put through this resolution supporting the annexation of the Golan Heights by the Israelis and having Congress recognize it. And he's going to get the Republicans to pass it in the Senate and see how many Democrats will vote for it. That'll get more AIPAC people to jump ship on the Democratic Party. because there's a lot of Democratic donors that are AIPAC supporters, okay? This is not a matter of opinion. This is a fact. If Canada invaded North Dakota with tanks, would we not own part of Canada? Not sure what that question's about. So then, okay, so he's gotten the Democrats to basically also defend John McCain, which makes them look horrible among their base. And then he's also having them abandon AIPAC openly and attack them, which is not good for their donation figures, okay? You're going to see the Democrats now basically have to portray themselves as essentially the pro-John McCain but also anti-Israel party. And, that doesn't earn you a huge... it doesn't earn you a big slice of the pie. There's not a lot of people that are both anti-Israel and also love John McCain. Okay, that's the problem. Okay, Donald Trump has gotten the Democrats to support two different issues that don't have any real intersecting lines. Okay, there's not a lot of people that like both John McCain and the Palestinians. It's just a fact. If Canada invaded, I still don't understand what that has to do with it. So I think he's trying to suggest that if Canada invaded North Dakota and kept it, would they not own it because it's the same issue as with the Golan Heights? Look, expansion into another country is more rare today than it ever was because since the 40s, of course, the UN kind of is a mediator, and it's more difficult for countries to annex land because you need recognition from the United Nations, you need recognition from a number of other international bodies. But you guys have to understand that this happens in a number of countries around the world. It happens between India and Pakistan. Pakistan occupies most of the historical areas of Jammu and Kashmir. And also China owns, they're occupying part of India called the Aksai Chin that used to be part of Kashmir. So those things do happen. You're talking also about the South China Sea. Maritime areas is it's a different, ball of wax. But these things do happen. And I'm not trying to tell you how things should be. I'm just telling you what these perspectives are. So yeah, the Democrats are going now. They can't earn many of these pro-Trump voters who probably are. Some of these pro-Trump voters don't like Israel. Okay, some of them are basically they're staunch America firsters. They're not going to like this. How therefore does Trump keep them on his side? It's very simple. The Democratic agenda on guns, the Democratic agenda on voting and ID and the Electoral College and immigration and abortion, all of those issues do not earn voters from the Trump side. So in order to dislodge voters from Donald Trump, you would have to basically back a candidate who is a more extreme, more isolationist version of Donald Trump. And I don't see one in the offing. So I think that'll be it. But thank you guys for staying up with me. I think I'm gonna go eat something because I'm hungry as hell. But, it's been fun. And once again, please watch the BitChute video. I'm going to put it in the chat again, just so you can see it. And this is about Jim Jeffries exposed by Avi Yemeni. And that's about it. I'll just play the song again, and I'll talk to you guys later. Have a great night.